The world of Hyrule is crazy nowadays. Anything can happen in this weird open world, filled with oddball characters and horrible creatures. One moment you're helping some guy with a sign, and 2 minutes later you're controlling a death robot that destroys any foe in sight. But as you can imagine, there are also loads of claims online that might be false or true, but we don't really know which ones are pure myth and which aren't. So today we will look at some of them, and all of these were suggested in the comments. So if you have any ideas, leave them down below. But now, let's dive into these myths. Number 15. In the previous video, we have messed around with various enemies from bokoblins to gyptos, and today we will once again experiment with the new enemy type that I just mentioned, because they have a weird power. For some reason, they don't take any damage when you hit them. In many ways, they are like unkillable zombies. So how do you get rid of them? Well, electricity seems to work. It makes them weak. But are there any other things that could work as well? According to Captain OD, there is. He said, I use dazzle fruits to strip the shells of gyptos. And so I went to the desert to test this stuff. I found this small group and threw a dazzle fruit at them, which was very effective as all of them became stunned and were weak to my attacks. This showed me that a fruit like this is actually incredibly effective, even better than using something like a shock fruit. So yeah, this claim is true, and also very handy in game. Number 14. Boomerangs have been in the Zelda series for a long time and have been crucial in so many dungeons. But now in Tears of the Kingdom, we don't have special dungeon items anymore. And so boomerangs can be found anywhere and are mostly used as a weapon. And as some of you have seen, they are quite popular, as we have tested an insane amount of boomerang myths. Like really, it's impressive. Especially all the jokes about it in the comments. And of course, we are going to experiment with them again today! Yippee! Because Channel Mongoose said, if you fuse two boomerangs together, they will fly differently, which is actually a simple one to test. And so I went into the wide world and got myself two boomerangs and combined them into one. At that point, I started throwing the thing around and quickly noticed that nothing really changed. Sure, it was a lot bigger now, but that's kind of it. The boomerang didn't fly differently or anything really. So yeah, sorry, this claim is false and not really useful for anything really. Number 13. Alright, this next myth is just wild, and it's a claim that I have seen multiple times in the comments section. And each time I saw it, I was convinced it was just some troll. Someone that was messing with me, tempting me to try this. So yeah, after seeing it again and again and again, I had to give this one a shot. Because Lucas said that putting a sky mushroom on your shield using the fuse ability will neglect fall damage. Now, as you can imagine, I am highly skeptical of this claim, but I had to try it so I could finally debunk or confirm this myth. And so I went high into the sky with a shield ready to go. And when I jumped, I noticed that this sky mushroom shield wasn't gonna save me. I took all the damage and instantly died. And even when testing from a smaller height, I still took full damage. So yeah, as expected, this claim was 100% false and isn't really useful for anything. Number 12. Sure, a mushroom on a shield does nothing. It doesn't allow you to survive insane drops. But it isn't the only claim like this out there. Because in the comment section, Toasted said, when you ride a steering stick, you are immune to fall damage. So what happens if you threw yourself off a sky island and tried riding one? Well, this made me curious. Could this really work, or does something go horribly wrong in the process? Well, in order to find out, I went to a sky island and set myself up to perform this trick, and when I did it, something went very wrong. For some reason, Link lets go of the steering stick, and so he falls to his death. So in the end, this stuff clearly doesn't work. But is there a way to make it work? Well, when I added something to the steering stick, like a hoverstone, it did finally work. Link doesn't let go, and so when you hit the ground, it will cancel all or most of the fall damage, making something like this survivable. Which means that this claim isn't really true or false, but plausible. It just requires some extra bits and pieces, and not just a simple steering stick. Number 11. Now this next one is very interesting, and it was also a lot of fun to test, because I was able to mess around with bokoblins once again, because this user, whose name I certainly can't pronounce, said try to take all the weapons from an enemy and give it a Korok weapon with a dazzle fruit attached. Now if he hits you, will the enemy stun itself, or will you get stunned by it, or something like that? Well, this was a good question, and also a fun little claim to test, and so I grabbed a Korok sword from the forest, added a dazzle fruit on it, and gave it to a bokoblin. Now when he hit me, the dazzle fruit went off, but surprisingly enough, Link was unaffected, while the bokoblin was blinded and even dropped the weapon. But then he picked it up again, and the same thing happened. Now I bet he would go on to do this forever and ever and ever, because he doesn't learn from his mistakes. So I bet this would work really well when you're fighting a big group of enemies, because one of them will constantly sabotage the whole thing. And so this claim is true, and also really funny to mess around with. Number 10. Now in Tears of the Kingdom, a number of new things were introduced, like the depths, a completely new world that is right below your feet. In many ways it's dark and depressing, so the complete opposite of the surface world. Even the land is the opposite, with mountains being canyons. However, one of the most annoying things to deal with down there is the effects of gloom, some sort of malice-like substance that weakens you due to its dark magical powers. And so you will lose hearts that can't be restored until light has healed you. And due to this, the light nodes that are found down there are very useful. However, are there any other ways to recover from this stuff? Well, maybe. Shy Link said that you can restore hearts in the depths from gloom with a Zonai light. But is this true? It would be very handy after all, since you can grab one from your inventory and use it right there. Well, after taking some gloom damage and setting this Zonai light down, I noticed it doesn't do anything really. The light hits me, but it doesn't restore any hearts. I'm still affected by the effects of gloom. So yeah, this claim is false. These lights are great for finding the way down there, but that's kind of it. Number 9. Now this next little myth didn't take a lot of effort to test. It was short and simple. Just a guy mentioned in my comment section that if you use the scope from the Pura pad when gliding, that it will slow down everything. And so in order to test this, I went to look at landing to see if it was real, because there you can see a bunch of Ritos flying around. And so I wanted to see if they would slow down when I looked at them with the scope while gliding in the air. And the answer is yes. Everything slows down to a crawl, similar to the flurry ability seen in the game when you do a perfect dodge. Now I think they added this so that scouting the area in the air is doable without dying in seconds, but in the end we have no idea why Nintendo added this. However, this claim is 100% true, and I bet it's incredibly useful when trying to pull off glitches and even make some of them possible. Number 8. In previous videos, we've seen how Zonai parts can be great to make all kinds of vehicles, but this isn't all, because we have also seen that combining them with weapons or shields can lead to amazing results. And today we are once again looking at something involving a Zonai device, a hoverstone to be exact, because this user, who has a bit of an odd name, asked me, will attaching a hoverstone to your shield prevent you from tumbling when a strong enemy hits you? Well, I had no idea, and so I looked for some enemies and tried to test this. Now I could see that the shield did work. It blocked hits and I didn't fall to the ground or anything. But when someone did hit me, I just fell and ragdolled. So in the end, as far as I can see, nothing really changes. Adding this to your shield just consumes battery, but doesn't make you any stronger or better. So yeah, this claim is false. Number 7. Now, of course, you can combine hoverstones with other things as well. And knowing these videos, I kind of expected the following request. Joe Gaming wondered what will happen if you fuse a hoverstone with a boomerang. He expected that it would just kind of stand still in the air. And personally, I had no idea what would happen if you actually did this. And since I already had a boomerang from the other myth that we tested, I added a hoverstone to it to see what would happen. And when I threw it, it did something very surprising. surprising. It flew for a bit, but then all of a sudden the hoverstone just popped up. Meanwhile, the boomerang just kinda fell to the ground as soon as the hoverstone activated. So it has a bit of a weird effect, one that is very similar to what was described in the comments, but in some ways it's also very different. Now, it's not super useful because you could also achieve the same effect with an arrow, which allows for more precision. But I guess the claim is possible? Sort of? It's a bit weird in my opinion. Number 6. In the past, we have tested multiple myths involving height, ways to go high into the sky using barely any resources. Now in the end, the most popular ways of achieving this are springs, bombs, and rockets, especially when you combine them with a shield. This way you can just grab them at any time and use the attached item to go high up into the sky. But one commenter claimed something that piqued my interest. Axcol said, a spring shield goes higher than a bomb and rocket shield. Now personally, I had no idea which one was best, and so I decided to test this stuff to see which one is king. I decided to set up shop in Hyrule Castle Town and tried all 3 of them in various forms, even using the spring on its own to see how high it would throw me. And what I found out is that rockets are the best when it comes to shield combinations, while the spring was the best when used on the ground instead of a shield. Meanwhile, the bomb was by far the worst. You just don't go that high, but at least the explosion is handy when dealing with enemies. But in the end, it is clear that the claim of the spring shield being king is 100% false. Number 5. In the game, bokoblins sometimes come up with clever ways to kill Link, usually involving explosions, weapons, or fire. But even when they have nothing, they will continue to attack, regardless of the odds, which is actually quite brave of them. Hell, even when they are disarmed, they will even throw rocks as a way to damage Link, which isn't very effective, but it's something. However, Red Z-Blade was wondering if you can actually use the recall ability on the rocks thrown by these guys. Now, I was quite sure that this would work, and so I confronted a bokoblin and disarmed him. Now, once he started throwing rocks, I quickly noticed that using recall on these worked, and so I slowly killed him using his own rocks, which shows that this claim is true, which I already expected because in many ways it's similar to the rocks that are shot at you by Octoroks. Number 4. Now for this video, I already went into the depths to test something, but now we are going back to test another, even though it is quite spooky down there. But Sushi Blocks made a claim that had to be tested. She said if you have golden hearts and take any gloom damage, all the golden hearts that you have will be gone. Now if this was true, then that could be very bad news. Golden hearts are very useful in the game after all, and so I went down to the depths after eating a hearty salmon to see if this stuff was true, and to my surprise, she was right. You lose all of them as soon as you take any gloom damage. So clearly, golden heart food isn't that useful down there, which shows how brutal these hellish lands can be. Number 3. The Yiga clan are a strange group of Sheikah defectors that try to help the forces of evil to win, but most of the time they just don't succeed, and in many ways they are a bit goofy. I mean, just look at their leader. But the one thing that stands out the most is their love for bananas. They will do anything to get those and are easily distracted by them. And so one of my viewers asked me, does a banana shield do anything to Yiga members? Which was an interesting question, and so I went to their hideout to test it, because if you knock on their door, they will see its Link and a number of Yiga will spawn. But when I showed them my beautiful banana shield, they still attacked me and didn't care about it whatsoever, which I found quite surprising. So as far as I could see, they just ignored it and nothing really changed. So yeah, this claim is false. Yigas only care about bananas on the ground. Number 2. Now, in previous videos, we didn't test that much in the depths. For some reason, we just didn't go down there. However, now we are doing loads of research, and this next myth is another one that takes place down there. Because someone on Twitter told me that if you feed a frogs meat or other things instead of bombs, they won't blow up, but they will get distracted by chewing on it. And since this person even contacted me on Twitter, I had to cover it. I mean, he put in extra effort to get featured. Now, when I found a Frox and threw a piece of meat into his mouth, he started chewing, which took quite a while. You could easily run away in that time. So if you ever want to avoid this boss, this is the way to go. Although I bet most of you will take him out for the loot. Zonite is quite handy after all. But it's still cool to see that this claim is real. So shout out to West 3D Gaming for putting in the extra effort of contacting me all the way over on Twitter. Or, well, X as it's known now, for some weird reason. Number 1. Now, in the world of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, there are a number of amazing food items, and man oh man, you need them. And so, food items that give you extra hearts, some sort of bonus like strength or defense, or anything else like that, are worth their weight in gold. But one thing that has become incredibly valuable in the game are fairies, because Mipha's resurrection powers aren't a thing anymore. And so these fairies will save you from death, and so it's very handy to keep a couple of them on you at all times. And someone in my comment section shared a good way of collecting them, as they are quite skittish. Geomaster said that if you eat a food that makes Link glow, and you're near a fairy whether in a cave or on a sky island, the fairy will get closer to Link. But this will only work in caves or at night. Doing so in the day won't work, and for better results, you should crouch near the fairy so you won't scare it away. Now, if this is real, it could be very handy and increase the success rate of capturing them. And so I went high into the sky at night to test this. I even used a very powerful glow food item for this, and when I tried to capture these fairies, I noticed that nothing really changed. They didn't really come towards me or anything, and so it wasn't super successful. So I think that this one is false. It didn't really work for me at least. Now, those were all the myths that we had for today, but I have more videos like this, so go check those out right now. And don't forget, you can suggest stuff in the comments down below, and even for other games, as I do want to cover other titles like Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64. So leave anything down below. Thank you all so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. This voiceover was slightly rough because I broke one of my, I broke the retainer of my brace, like the steel wire retainer, so my teeth are kind of hurting. I'm going to the orthodontist ASAP. But I hope it didn't sound too weird or different. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell button, leave your comments down below. I do read them. I read a lot of comments. Really, I'm dedicated for this now. I try to read at least 200 to 400 comments of new videos and stuff. So leave them down below. I hope you enjoyed. If you have anything, leave it down below, like I said, and then I'll see you all in the next video. And then my teeth will be fixed. Yippee! Bye, everybody. I hope my teeth don't pop out of my mouth now. Bye!